I spent an entire year going to take care of my pregnant daughter-in-law. A full year sacrificing my life, my early mornings, my health. But today I missed the train and had to go back to spend the night in that house. And as soon as I walked in, I heard a conversation between her and my son that made me slide down the wall in sheer shock. I literally felt my legs give out from under me, felt the air escape from my lungs, felt how everything I had believed in for 12 months turned to ash. There, hidden behind that door, with my hand covering my mouth to keep from screaming, I heard words I should never have heard, words that changed everything, that destroyed everything. And the worst part is that I, like an idiot, never saw the signs. I never suspected a thing. I was the perfect fool. Let me tell you how I got to that moment. How a 64-year-old woman, a widow, a hard worker, an honest person, ended up discovering the most bitter truth of her life. It all started a year ago, when Stephen called me with a worried voice. "Mom, I need you to come," he said. "Jessica is pregnant, and the doctor says she has to be on absolute bed rest. She's at risk of losing the baby. We can't afford to hire someone to take care of her, and I have to work. You're the only one I trust." Trust. That word went straight to my heart. My son trusted me. He needed my help. How could I say no? I'm a mother. Mothers don't abandon their children when they need them the most. So, I said yes without a second thought. "I'll come every day," I promised him. "Don't you worry about a thing. I'll take care of Jessica and the house. You just focus on work." And I kept my promise. Of course I did. I started getting up at 5 in the morning, every single day, no exceptions. Not on Sundays, not on holidays, not even when my back ached so much I could barely walk. I would get up in the dark, make my coffee, prepare breakfast to take to them, pack food in containers. I'd leave my house at 6 to catch the 6:30 train. A 40-minute ride. I would arrive at their apartment at 8 in the morning. I had a key. They gave it to me on the first day. "So you don't have to ring the bell and wake Jessica up," Stephen said. "She needs her sleep." So I would enter silently, like a ghost on my own mission. I'd put the food in the refrigerator, start the coffee maker, and begin cleaning the kitchen, which was always a mess. Dishes in the sink, crumbs everywhere, glasses with the dried remains of juice. Stephen would leave for work around 8:30. He'd give me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Thanks, Mom, you're an angel," he'd say while adjusting his tie, and he'd be gone. I would be left alone, cleaning, waiting for Jessica to wake up. Sometimes it was at 10 o'clock, sometimes 11. It depended on her mood. When she finally appeared, she always had that look on her face, that expression of annoyance, as if the world owed her something. "Good morning," I'd say with a smile. She would barely grunt. "Carol, I'm hungry," she'd reply, rubbing her belly. As if I didn't know. As if I hadn't come for that exact reason. I'd prepare her breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, fresh squeezed orange juice, cut fruit, everything served at the table, like in a restaurant. She would eat in silence, scrolling through her phone, completely ignoring me. If something wasn't to her liking, she'd say so. "The toast is too hard, the juice is sour, the eggs are cold." I would go back to the kitchen and fix it, without complaining, without even sighing. After breakfast came the list. There was always a list. "Carol, I need you to wash those curtains." "Carol, clean the bathroom again, it still has spots." "Carol, iron these clothes." "Carol, go to the grocery store and buy these things." And I would go. Of course I would go. I'd carry the bags, climb the stairs because the elevator was broken, put everything away, organize the pantry. Jessica would spend her time on the couch, watching television, painting her nails, talking on the phone with her friends, laughing. I'd hear her from the kitchen while I scrubbed the floor. I'd hear her say things like, "Oh girl, you have no idea what a drag it is being stuck in here." Luckily, the mother-in-law comes and does everything. It's like having free help. Free help. Those words hurt the first time I heard them, but I convinced myself it was just her way of talking, that she didn't mean it maliciously, that the pregnancy made her sensitive and she said things without thinking. I justified everything, absolutely everything. At lunchtime I would serve her. Chicken, salad, soup, whatever I had prepared. She would eat while criticizing. This is too salty. This is too bland. I don't like this vegetable. Stephen would get home at 7 in the evening. The three of us would have dinner. Well, they would have dinner. I would serve, heat, and clean. I would only sit down after they finished. I'd eat the leftovers standing in the kitchen, quickly, because I still had to do the dishes before I left. I'd leave that house at 9 at night. I'd take the train back. I'd get to my apartment at 10. My feet, my back, my hands ached. I would shower and collapse into bed. 4 hours later, the alarm would go off again, and it all would start over. My friends would tell me, "Carol, you're killing yourself. Your son is a grown man. He can hire someone." But I would defend Stephen. "He's saving up for the baby," I'd explain. "Besides, I'm the grandmother. It's my responsibility." They would shake their heads, worried. I would smile. They didn't understand. They couldn't understand a mother's love. My sister, Nancy, was the most direct. "That girl is using you," she told me one day. "And Stephen is letting her. They have you as a maid, Carol. Open your eyes." I got angry with her. I told her she was bitter, that she couldn't stand to see others happy. We stopped speaking for months. Now I know Nancy was right. She was always right. But I kept going. Day after day, week after week, month after month, a full year living for them, putting my own life on pause. My friends stopped inviting me out. What for, if I always said no? I was too tired, too busy, too devoted to a family that, as I would discover on that terrible night, only saw me as a doormat. The months passed and Jessica's belly grew. I was growing too, but in fatigue, in aches, in new wrinkles that appeared every morning in the mirror. I looked at myself and no longer recognized the woman staring back. I had aged 10 years in one. My hands trembled in the mornings. It was hard to get out of bed, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't fail them. They needed me. Jessica became more demanding as time went on. Now she didn't just want the perfect breakfast. She wanted foot rubs. She wanted me to read magazines aloud to her while she rested. She wanted me to keep her company watching her terrible television shows. I would sit next to her on that couch, with my hands cracked from so much washing and cleaning, feigning interest in those stupid dramas that fascinated her. Stephen started coming home later and later, at 8, 9, sometimes 10 at night, always with the same excuse. "Lots of work, Mom. We're on a big project. I have to put in overtime for the baby." I believed him. Of course I believed him. He was my son. My only son. The man I raised alone after his father died. He would never lie to me. But there was something. Something I couldn't put my finger on. A strange feeling in my stomach every time I saw Stephen and Jessica together. The way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't watching. Those little, knowing smiles. Like they were sharing a secret, I would shake my head. "You're being paranoid, Carol," I'd tell myself. "They're a happy couple expecting their baby. You're just tired and seeing things that aren't there." One afternoon, 2 months before everything blew up, I overheard Jessica on the phone. I was in the kitchen making dinner. She was in the living room. Her voice carried clearly. Yeah, the old lady still comes every day. It's unbelievable, I swear. She does everything. I don't lift a finger," Stephen says, "to just hang in there a little longer. That once the baby is born, we'll figure out what to do with her." Laughter. More laughter. The knife in my hand slipped. I almost cut myself. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel the beats in my temples. What to do with her? Those words stabbed into my chest like shards of glass. But I said nothing. I didn't go into the living room. I didn't confront anyone. I convinced myself I had misheard, that my exhaustion was making me imagine things, that Jessica was talking about someone else, anyone else but me. That night, when Stephen came home, I watched him differently. I searched his eyes for something that told me he was still my little boy, the boy who cried in my arms when he had nightmares, the teenager who would hug me and tell me I was the best mom in the world. But I only saw fatigue, or maybe indifference. "Mom, come in a little later tomorrow," he said. "Jessica wants to sleep in. She's really exhausted." Exhausted. Her. The one who spent the entire day on the couch watching television while I scrubbed floors on my knees. but I said nothing. I just nodded. Of course, son. Whatever you need. That night, on the train ride home, I cried. I don't know why exactly. I just knew that something inside of me was breaking and I couldn't stop it. The days grew heavier. Jessica invented more tasks. Carol, wash the windows. Carol, organize the closet. Carol, scrub the bathroom walls. Tasks that made no sense. Tasks just to keep me busy, to see me on my knees, to show me who was in charge in that house. And I obeyed. I always obeyed. There was one day I nearly fainted. I was cleaning the kitchen, and suddenly everything went black. I held on to the edge of the counter. I took a deep breath. Jessica walked in at that moment. She saw me, pale and sweating. "What's wrong with you?" she asked with annoyance. "Nothing," I replied. "Just a dizzy spell." "Well, have a glass of water and get back to it." "I'm hungry," she said, and she left. Without asking if I was okay. Without even offering me a chair to sit on. That night I thought about quitting. About telling Stephen I couldn't do it anymore. That he should find someone else. That he should pay the $500 a week a caregiver would cost. But then I thought about my grandchild. About the baby that was about to be born. If I left, who would take care of him? Jessica couldn't even take care of herself. Stephen worked all day. I was necessary. I was important. Oh, how wrong I was. 3 weeks before the due date, Stephen asked me to stay over for a few nights. "Just in case Jessica goes into labor, Mom. I don't want her to be alone." I said yes. I started bringing a small overnight bag. I slept on the living room couch. Uncomfortable, hard, too short for my body. I'd wake up with a sore neck, an aching back, but I didn't complain. I never complained. One of those nights, I got up to use the bathroom. It was 2 a.m. I passed by their bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I heard their voices. They were speaking softly, but not softly enough. "It's almost time," Stephen was saying. "Once the baby is born and the first few weeks are over, we'll move forward with the plan. My mom won't say a thing. She's too nice, too naive." Jessica laughed. That soft, poisonous laugh. "You're right. Your mom is the most gullible person I've ever met. She believes anything." I froze in the hallway. The plan. What plan? What were they talking about? I wanted to go in. I wanted to scream. But my legs wouldn't respond. My throat was tight. I went back to the couch in silence. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I just stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what I'd heard, trying to convince myself it didn't mean anything bad. The next morning, I acted normal. I made breakfast, I cleaned, I smiled. But inside, something had shifted. I started paying attention, observing, listening more carefully. And what I discovered in the following days prepared me for what was to come. For that terrible night when I missed the train and my entire world fell apart. The last few days before the birth were strange. I continued with my routine, but something in me had changed. I was no longer the same blind woman who justified everything. Now I saw details I had previously ignored. The way Jessica spoke to me as if I were her employee. The way Stephen avoided looking me in the eye. The knowing smiles they exchanged when they thought I was distracted. One afternoon, I found some papers on the table. I was cleaning and saw them by accident. They were brochures for senior living facilities, retirement homes. They call them that now to make it sound nice. But I know what they are: nursing homes. Places where families leave the old people they no longer want at home. My heart sped up. I picked up one of the brochures. Prices starting at $3,000 a month. 24-hour comprehensive care. Shared or private rooms. My hands trembled holding that paper. Why did they have this? Why were they looking at prices for nursing homes? I heard footsteps. I quickly put the brochure back where I found it and continued cleaning. Jessica shuffled into the living room. She saw the papers and snatched them up quickly. "Oh, this," she said with a fake smile. "A friend gave them to me. Her mom is looking for a place. I told her I'd check them out." A lie. I saw the lie in her eyes. But I nodded. "That's nice of you to help your friend," I said in a calm voice, though inside I was dying. That night I couldn't sleep again. I tossed and turned on that awful couch, thinking about everything. About the year I had sacrificed. About the conversations I had overheard. About those brochures. About the words, "Almost time for the plan." The pieces were starting to come together in my head, forming a terrible picture. But I still didn't want to accept it. I still clung to the hope that I was wrong. The baby was born on a Tuesday morning. I was there when Jessica started having contractions. We took her to the hospital. Stephen drove nervously. I sat in the back holding Jessica's hand while she screamed. At the hospital, I stayed in the waiting room. I waited for 8 hours. 8 hours of pacing back and forth, praying, asking for everything to be okay. When Stephen came out with the news, I saw tears in his eyes. "It's a boy, Mom. A beautiful, healthy boy." I hugged him. I felt love. I felt genuine happiness. For a moment, I forgot all my suspicions. I was a grandmother. I had a grandson. Everything I had suffered was worth it for this moment. They let me in to meet him. He was perfect, small, pink, with his eyes closed and his tiny fists clenched. Jessica was in bed, exhausted but smiling. "Look at him, Carol," she said. "He's beautiful." I nodded, unable to speak. Tears streamed down my face. Stephen put his hand on my shoulder. "Thanks for everything, Mom. We couldn't have done it without you." Those words touched my soul. I thought that maybe, just maybe, I had been imagining things, that the exhaustion had made me paranoid. The first few days after the hospital were intense. Jessica and the baby needed constant care. I stayed at their house for the whole week. I woke up every 3 hours when the baby cried. I prepared the bottles. I changed diapers. I washed the baby's clothes by hand because Jessica insisted the washing machine was too rough. I cooked for everyone. I cleaned the house. I attended to the visitors who came to meet the baby. Stephen went back to work after 3 days. Just 3 days. He said he couldn't ask for more time off, that they needed him at the office. So it was just Jessica, the baby, and me. And there, without Stephen in the middle, I saw my daughter-in-law's true face. She no longer pretended. She no longer smiled. She gave me orders all day long. "Carol, get me some water. Carol, the baby needs a bath. Carol, I'm hungry. Carol, clean that up. Carol, Carol, Carol." One night I was so tired I fell asleep sitting on the couch with the baby in my arms. I woke up to Jessica's scream. "You're so irresponsible. What if you had dropped him?" She was furious. I explained that I had only closed my eyes for a second, that the baby was safe in my arms. But she wouldn't listen. She took the baby from me and locked herself in her room. I was left there alone, with empty hands, feeling that something very bad was about to happen. 2 weeks passed. I was still going every day. Now the workload was double. Jessica and the baby. 2 people who depended completely on me. Well, Jessica didn't really depend. She could do things, but she didn't want to. Why should she, when I was there? One Saturday afternoon, I heard Stephen on the phone on the balcony. I was folding baby clothes in the living room. "Yes, it's time," he was saying. "Everything's ready. The papers are signed. We're just waiting for the right moment to tell her. She can't do anything. Legally, it's all taken care of." My breathing stopped. Papers? What papers? What was my son talking about? That same night, when Stephen went out to the pharmacy, I searched. I don't know what I expected to find, but I needed to know. I checked drawers, files, documents, and there they were. In the second desk drawer, legal documents, a power of attorney, property transfer deeds, my name on several papers, my signature, but I had never signed anything. I looked closer. It was my signature, perfectly forged. They had forged my signature on documents that took away my control over my properties, the house where I lived, the small apartment my husband and I had bought with so much effort, the money I had saved in the bank. Everything was being transferred to Stephen's name. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. I sat on the floor with those papers in my hands. My son. My own son was robbing me. He was taking away everything I had. I heard the door. Stephen was back. I quickly put everything back as it was and left the room. He saw me coming out. "What were you doing in there?" he asked suspiciously. I was looking for a pen, I lied. My head hurts. He watched me for a long moment. Then he nodded. You should go rest, Mom. You look terrible. Yes, I replied. I'll leave soon. But I didn't leave that night. I told him I'd stay in case the baby needed anything. In reality, I needed to think. I needed to figure out what to do, who I could turn to. I lay on the couch but didn't sleep. I just stared into the darkness, trying to process that my entire life had been a lie. The next day was Sunday. I decided I would go back to my house. I needed distance. I needed air. I told Stephen I was feeling sick, that I needed a day to rest. He seemed relieved. Of course, Mom. Get some rest. I'll call you if we need anything. I took my things and left. On the train ride back, I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since my husband died. People stared at me, but I didn't care. I got to my apartment. I went inside. Everything was covered in dust. It had been weeks since I had spent any real time there. I sat on my bed and took out my phone. I looked for Nancy's number, my sister, the one who had warned me, and I hadn't listened. I dialed. She answered on the second ring. Carol, she said, surprised. You were right, I said, my voice breaking, about everything. Nancy sighed. I'm on my way, she replied, and hung up. Nancy arrived an hour later. She knocked, and when I opened the door, she hugged me without saying a word. That hug was all I needed to completely fall apart. I cried on her shoulder like a little girl. She held me steady, stroking my hair, letting me release all the pain that had been building up for months. When I could finally speak, I told her everything, absolutely everything. I told her about the entire year of sacrifice, the early mornings, the exhaustion, the mistreatment disguised as pregnancy whims, the conversations I'd overheard, the nursing home brochures, and worst of all, the documents with my forged signature. Nancy listened, her jaw tight. Her eyes darkened with every word. When I finished, she got up from the couch and walked to the window. She stood there, looking out at the street in silence. That son of yours, she finally said, her voice controlled but filled with fury, is a snake. And that woman is worse. They're robbing you, Carol. Not just of your money or your house. They're robbing you of your dignity, your life. And they planned it from the beginning. A chill ran down my spine. From the beginning. Those words confirmed what I had begun to suspect. The pregnancy. Stephen's urgent call. Jessica's fabricated bed rest. It had all been a trap to get me there. To use me. Nancy turned to face me. I need you to tell me exactly what documents you saw. Where are they? What did they say? I explained everything in detail. She took out her phone and started making calls. The first call was to a lawyer friend of hers. The second to an accountant. The third to someone I didn't recognize. She spoke quickly, seriously, taking notes on a piece of paper. I watched her, feeling useless. When she finished, she sat down in front of me. Here's what we're going to do, she said. First thing tomorrow morning, we're going to the lawyer. He'll verify if those documents have already been filed or if they're still in process. If they forged your signature, it's fraud. It's a felony. Stephen could go to jail. I swallowed hard. My son in jail. The thought terrified me, but at the same time, I felt he deserved it. What kind of son robs his own mother? And in the meantime, what do I do? I asked in a small voice. You act normal, Nancy replied. You keep going to that house as if nothing has happened. They can't suspect you know. We need time to build a case, to gather evidence, to protect what's yours. She looked me in the eyes. You're going to have to be strong, Carol. You're going to have to pretend. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I could do it. That night, Nancy stayed with me. We slept together in my bed like we did when we were girls. She held my hand in the dark. You're going to get through this, she whispered. I promise you. I won't let them hurt you anymore. Her words were the only thing holding me together. The next day, we went to the lawyer's office. An older, serious man with thick glasses and a desk piled high with books. He listened to the whole story without interrupting. Then he asked for details. Dates, names, descriptions of the documents. He took quick notes. When we were done, he leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. "This is serious," he said. "If they did indeed forge your signature to transfer properties, we're talking about felony fraud, grand theft, aggravated by the family relationship. But we need hard evidence. We need the original documents. We need witnesses, if possible, and we need to act fast before they manage to complete the transfers." Nancy leaned forward. "What do you need us to do?" The lawyer looked directly at me. "I need you to go back to that house and photograph those documents. All of them. Every single page. With your phone? And send them to me." My heart pounded. Go back there. Rummage through their things. Photograph evidence. It was dangerous. If they caught me, I didn't know what they might do. But Nancy put her hand on mine. "I'll go with you," she said. "I'll wait outside. If anything happens, call me and I'll come in. You won't be alone." The lawyer nodded. "It's the only way. Without those photos, I can't initiate any legal proceedings." We left with a plan. We would wait until the next day, which was Monday. Stephen would be at work. I would arrive as usual at 8 in the morning. Nancy would stay at a coffee shop near the building. I would find the documents, photograph them, and leave. Simple. Or so it seemed. On Sunday, Stephen called me. "Mom, where are you? We need you. The baby won't stop crying and Jessica is at her wit's end." His voice sounded genuinely worried. For a moment, I felt the urge to run over there, to help. But then I remembered the documents, the lies, the plan to get rid of me. "I have a terrible headache, son," I replied. "I think I have the flu. I need to rest or I'll get worse." There was a silence. "Okay," he finally said in a cold tone. "Take care of yourself." And he hung up. Nancy, who was beside me, nodded in approval. "Well done. Let them suffer for a day without you. Let them feel what it's like to have to do things on their own." But I felt no satisfaction. Only a huge emptiness in my chest. My son, my baby, the boy I raised alone after I was widowed, the boy I gave everything to. He had grown up to become a thief, a liar, someone capable of destroying his own mother. Monday dawned gray and cold. I got dressed with trembling hands. Nancy made coffee and forced me to eat something, even though I had no appetite. "You're going to need your strength," she said. "Today is a big day." We took the train together. On the way, we went over the plan again and again. Go in normally, say hello, make breakfast, wait for Jessica to take a shower, find the documents, photograph everything, put everything back exactly as it was, leave. We arrived at the building at 10 minutes to 8. Nancy went to the coffee shop on the corner. I went up in the elevator alone. My heart was beating so loudly I felt like everyone could hear it. I opened the door with my key. I went inside. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Jessica was asleep. The baby too. Perfect. I moved silently to the kitchen. I started the coffee maker just so it would seem like I was following my normal routine. Then I walked slowly to the room with the desk. I opened the drawer carefully. The documents were still there. I took out my phone. I began photographing, page by page, every sheet, every forged signature, every notary seal. Suddenly, I heard footsteps. I froze. Jessica came out of the bathroom. She was awake. She saw me standing there in front of the desk, phone in hand. Her eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" she asked sharply. My mind raced. I was looking for a pen, I lied, slipping the phone into my pocket. "I need to write down the grocery list." She watched me without moving. Then she pointed toward the kitchen. "The pens are in the kitchen. They've always been in the kitchen." I nodded and walked out of there, trying to act normal even though my legs were shaking. In the kitchen, I took a deep breath. I had managed to photograph almost everything. Only 2 pages were left, but I couldn't risk going back. Jessica was suspicious. I decided it was enough. I prepared breakfast mechanically. I served Jessica. She ate in silence, watching me the whole time. The atmosphere was tense. Finally, at 11 o'clock, I told her I was feeling sick again, that I needed to leave. She smiled, that fake, venomous smile. "Of course, Carol, go ahead." We don't need you that much anymore anyway. We don't need you anymore. Those words confirmed everything. I left that house feeling filthy. I ran down the stairs. I reached the coffee shop where Nancy was waiting. I got them, I said, showing her the phone. She smiled. Good. Now let's go see the lawyer. The lawyer reviewed the photographs on his computer with a serious expression. He went through each image, zooming in on the signatures, the seals, the dates. Nancy and I waited in silence. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, he looked up and took off his glasses. This is enough, he said. We have clear evidence of signature forgery. Furthermore, I see some of these documents have already been filed with a notary. That means the fraud is actively in process. We need to act immediately. How immediately? Nancy asked. Today, he replied. I'm going to prepare a criminal complaint for fraud and forgery of documents. I'm also going to request precautionary measures to freeze any transaction related to Mrs. Collins's properties, and we will need her to give a formal statement to the authorities. He looked at me seriously. Are you prepared for this? This means your son will be investigated, possibly arrested. I nodded, though I felt like I was suffocating. I'm prepared. I lied. We spent the next few hours in offices. First, the district attorney's office, then the courthouse. I signed papers I barely read. I gave statements to officials who looked at me with pity. A mother reporting her own son. They probably thought I was a terrible mother, or that my son was a monster. Maybe both were true. Nancy didn't leave my side for a moment. She held my arm. She brought me water. She reminded me to breathe when I felt like I couldn't get enough air. At 6 p.m, we left the last office. The lawyer walked us to the street. The documents are filed, he said. The restraining orders will be executed early tomorrow morning. The bank accounts will be frozen, the properties blocked. And a subpoena will be issued for Stephen to appear before the prosecutor. They will probably serve him at his job. I felt a pang of pain. My son, receiving a court summons at his office. The humiliation. But then I remembered what he had done to me, and the pain transformed into something harder, into determination. Nancy took me back to my apartment. She ordered food because I didn't even have the strength to cook. We ate in silence, watching the news without really paying attention. My phone rang several times. It was Stephen. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. Mom, where are you? I need to talk to you. It's important. Please call me. Each text pierced my chest. But Nancy took the phone from me. Don't answer him. Not yet. Let him stew in uncertainty for a bit. That night, I couldn't sleep either. I spent it imagining what the next day would be like. How would Stephen react when he got the notice? What would Jessica say? Would they realize it had been me? Would they come looking for me? Nancy snored softly on the living room couch. She had insisted on staying another night. I'm not leaving you alone in this, she had said, and I was more grateful than words could express. Tuesday dawned, and my phone exploded. 12 missed calls from Stephen. 8 text messages, 3 from Jessica, all demanding to know where I was. What was happening? Why wasn't I answering? Nancy read the messages and smiled with satisfaction. They know, she said. The notice has arrived. Now they'll try to scare you, manipulate you. Don't fall for it. The lawyer called at 9 a.m, confirming that the protective measures were active. Everything is frozen, he said. They can't move a single penny, can't sell a thing. And Stephen has been summoned for Friday at 10 o'clock. At 11 a.m, someone pounded on my door, loudly, insistently. Carol, open up. It's me. It was Stephen. His voice was desperate, furious. Nancy motioned for me not to open it, but he kept banging. I know you're in there. Open this door right now. I need to talk to you. Nancy went to the door. Go away, Stephen, she yelled from inside, or I'm calling the police. There was a silence. Aunt Nancy, what are you doing here? Where's my mom? Protecting your mother from you, she answered in a hard voice. Now, leave before you make your situation worse. I heard footsteps retreating, then the elevator. I breathed a sigh of relief, but I knew he would be back. And he was. In the afternoon, I received a different kind of message. It was long. Mom, I don't know what Aunt Nancy told you, but there's been a misunderstanding. Some documents you signed months ago are now causing legal problems. I need you to come and fix it. It's urgent. If we don't, I'm going to be in serious trouble at work. Please. I need you. The baby needs you. Don't do this. I read that message 5 times. The manipulation was so obvious now. So clear, in a way I hadn't seen before. Documents you signed months ago. I had never signed anything. He was lying through his teeth, trying to make me feel guilty, trying to use the baby as emotional blackmail. I deleted the message without replying. On Wednesday, Stephen showed up with Jessica. I heard them arguing outside my door. She has to open, Jessica was saying. She's your mother. Threaten her. Tell her if she doesn't fix this, she'll never see her grandson again. Those words were like a bucket of ice water. You'll never see your grandson again. So that was the plan. Steal everything from me, and then take the baby away too. Use my grandson as a hostage to control me. Nancy, who had also heard, clenched her fists. They're garbage, she whispered. Pure garbage. Stephen knocked on the door, calmer this time. Mom, please. I just want to talk. 5 minutes. I'm begging you. His voice sounded broken, almost convincing. But I was no longer the naive woman from 2 weeks ago. I didn't open the door. They left after half an hour of alternating pleas and threats. Thursday night, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated but answered. It was the voice of an older woman. Mrs. Collins? This is Tatiana, Jessica's mother. I need to speak with you. It's about my daughter and your son. You can fix this without going to court. My daughter is very stressed, and that's bad for the baby. You're a grandmother. You understand how important family is. I took a deep breath before answering. Tell your daughter, I said in a firm voice, that she should have thought about family before she planned to rob me and abandon me in a nursing home. The woman was silent. Then she hung up. Nancy looked at me with pride. That's my sister, she said, smiling. That's the Carol I know. I felt a little stronger, a little less of a victim. Friday arrived quickly. It was the day of Stephen's hearing. The lawyer asked us to come as well. There's a chance they'll want statements from both parties on the same day, he explained. It's better to be prepared. We arrived at the prosecutor's building at 9:30. The lawyer was already there waiting. He had more papers, more evidence he had collected. I got a statement from the notary who authenticated the signatures, he said. He admitted he never saw you in person, that Stephen came alone with the documents already signed. That strengthens the forgery case. I nodded, feeling a mix of pain and satisfaction. At exactly 10 o'clock, I saw Stephen arrive. He was with Jessica and a lawyer I didn't know. Stephen looked terrible. Deep dark circles under his eyes. His suit was wrinkled. His hair was a mess. When he saw me, his eyes filled with something. Fear? Guilt? Rage? I couldn't tell. Mom, he started to say, approaching me. But his lawyer stopped him. Don't speak to her. No contact until after the hearing. We went into separate rooms. Me with Nancy and my lawyer. Stephen with Jessica and his. 2 hours passed. I was called in to give my statement. I entered an office where there was a prosecutor, a secretary, and a tape recorder. They had me swear an oath. Then the questions began. Did you sign these documents? No. Did you authorize your son to conduct transfers of your properties? No. Are you aware of when these forgeries were made? Not exactly, but I suspect it was during the year I spent caring for his pregnant wife. I told the whole story. From Stephen's call asking for help to the day I discovered the documents. The prosecutor listened, taking notes. He asked specific questions. He wanted details, dates, names. When I was finished, he thanked me and let me leave. In the hallway, I saw Stephen going into the same office. Our eyes met for a second. There was so much I wanted to say to him, so much pain I wanted to scream at him, but I just kept walking. Nancy was waiting for me outside. Done, I nodded. Done. We left the building. The sun was too bright for such a dark day. The lawyer caught up with us minutes later. It went well, he said. The prosecutor has enough to proceed. Now we have to wait. How long? I asked. Weeks, maybe months. But the important thing is that your assets are protected, and Stephen is going to have to answer for what he did. The following weeks were strange. I lived in a kind of limbo. I didn't go to Stephen's house. I didn't see my grandson. I didn't speak to my son. It was as if that part of my life had been erased overnight. Nancy kept coming over every day. She forced me to go out, to walk, to eat, to not stay locked up in my apartment, thinking about everything I had lost. Because I had lost my son, my family, the illusion that things could be different. But I had also gained something: dignity, self-respect, the ability to look at myself in the mirror without feeling shame. I was no longer the woman who let herself be walked all over. I was no longer the blind mother who justified everything. I was Carol, a 64-year-old woman who had decided to fight for herself, and that was worth more than anything. The lawyer kept me updated on the case's progress. Stephen had hired an expensive lawyer. They were trying to negotiate. They wanted to reach a settlement out of court. Basically, they wanted me to drop the charges in exchange for them returning everything. "What do you want to do?" my lawyer asked me. "It's up to you. If you accept the deal, you get your assets back quickly, but Stephen won't face criminal charges. If we continue with the case, it could take longer, but he will have a felony record for fraud." I took 2 days to think about it. Nancy thought we should go all the way, that Stephen deserved to pay for what he did, but I wasn't so sure. Not because I wanted to protect him, but because I no longer had the energy for more battles. I just wanted to get my things back and move on with my life. Finally, I told the lawyer I would accept a settlement under certain conditions. I want everything back: my properties, my money, every single cent. And I want Stephen to sign a document where he acknowledges what he did, where he admits to the fraud. Even if it doesn't go to trial, I need that piece of paper. I need that written confession. The lawyer relayed my conditions. It took 3 days to get a response. Stephen accepted. He was willing to sign everything, to return everything. He only asked for one thing: to talk to me. 5 minutes, alone. My first instinct was to refuse. But then I thought that maybe I needed that closure. I needed to hear what he had to say. What excuse could he possibly have for betraying me in such a way? I agreed, on the condition that it would be in the lawyer's office, neutral territory. With witnesses nearby, the meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday at 3 in the afternoon. I arrived 15 minutes early. Nancy wanted to come with me, but I asked her to wait outside. I needed to do this alone. Stephen arrived on time. He looked worse than the last time I saw him. He had lost weight. He had more gray hair. He seemed to have aged years in just a few weeks. We sat across from each other in the conference room. The lawyer left us alone, but the door remained ajar. There was a long, uncomfortable silence. Stephen looked down at his hands. I looked at him, waiting. Finally, he spoke. "I'm sorry, Mom." His voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry for everything. I don't know what I was thinking." He looked up, and I saw tears in his eyes, but I felt no compassion, only emptiness. "What you were thinking." I repeated his words. "I'll tell you what you were thinking, Stephen. You were thinking about yourself, about your comfort, about your money. You were thinking your mother was so stupid and so good that you could do whatever you wanted with her." He shook his head. "It's not like that. I love you. I've always loved you." I let out a bitter laugh. "You love me? I spent an entire year sacrificing for you and your family. I woke up at the crack of dawn. I gave up my life, my health, everything for you. And while I was killing myself working, you were planning to rob me and lock me away in a nursing home. Is that what love is to you?" Stephen covered his face with his hands. "It was Jessica's idea," he said in a choked voice. "She convinced me. She said we needed the money for the baby, that you were old and didn't need that much, that it was better to secure your grandson's future." "Ah, so it was Jessica's fault," I said sarcastically. "You were just an innocent victim following your wife's orders." Stephen raised his face. His cheeks were wet. "I know it sounds pathetic. I know there's no excuse. But I swear I never wanted to hurt you. We just wanted to be financially secure. The baby costs so much. The house is expensive. My job doesn't pay enough, and you have that property you barely use. We thought we could sell it and split the money, that we would all win. Split my money, I said slowly. My money that I earned working for 40 years. The house your father and I bought with our blood, sweat, and tears. That's what you wanted to split, without asking me, without my permission, forging my signature. And then what, Stephen? After robbing me of everything, what was next in the plan? He looked down again. The nursing home was temporary, he murmured. Just until the baby was older. Then we would have brought you back. Liar, I said calmly. I heard Jessica on the phone. I heard your conversations. The plan was to get rid of me permanently. To use me until I was no longer useful and then throw me away like trash. Stephen opened his mouth to deny it, but no words came out. He knew I was right. He knew I had discovered everything. The silence grew heavy, unbearable. You need to understand something, I finally said. I gave you life. I raised you alone after your father died. I worked 2 jobs to give you an education, to buy you clothes, so that you would want for nothing. I never asked for anything in return. I only asked you to be a good man, an honest man, and I failed. I failed as a mother because I raised someone capable of betraying the person who loved him most. Stephen was sobbing openly now. Don't say that. Please, don't say that. I'm going to sign the agreement, I continued. You're going to give me back everything that is mine. You're going to sign the confession. And after that, I don't want to see you again. Stephen jerked his head up. What? You can't say that. I'm your son. He is my grandson, I replied. And you took away my right to know him when you decided to use and betray me. You can't do that, he said, his voice desperate. You can't take my mother away from me. You took your mother away from yourself, I said, standing up. The day you decided my life was worth less than your comfort. The day you forged my signature. The day you planned to lock me away and forget about me. That day, you lost the right to call me Mom. I walked to the door. Stephen got up, trying to follow me. Wait, please. We can fix this. We can start over. I turned one last time. No, Stephen. We can't. Some things can't be fixed. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. This is one of them. I walked out of that room with my head held high. Nancy was waiting in the reception area. She saw my face and knew it had been difficult. She hugged me. I'm proud of you, she whispered. We left the building together. The fresh air hit my face, and I took a deep breath. It was as if I had been holding my breath for months and could finally exhale. In the following days, all the papers were signed. Stephen returned the deeds to my property. He transferred back the money he had moved from my accounts. He signed the document where he admitted to forging my signature with the intent to appropriate my assets. Everything was recorded. Everything was on paper. My lawyer kept copies of everything. Just in case, he said. Just in case they ever try anything again. One afternoon, 2 weeks after everything was legally settled, I received a package at my door. There was no return address. I opened it carefully. Inside was a photo album, pictures of my grandson, the baby I had helped bring into the world. Pictures of him sleeping, smiling, in Stephen's arms, in Jessica's arms. There was a handwritten note. It simply said, "Your grandson misses you. We do too." It wasn't signed. I looked at those photos for an hour. The baby was beautiful. He had Stephen's eyes from when he was a boy. The same nose, the same little hands. I felt a deep ache in my chest. That child was not to blame for anything. He was innocent in all of this, but seeing him meant going back. It meant forgiving. It meant forgetting what they had done to me, and I wasn't ready for that. Maybe I never would be. I put the album in a drawer. Maybe someday, I told myself. Maybe when that boy is older and can understand. When he can hear my side of the story, then I can really know him. I can be his grandmother without having to put up with his parents. But that day was not today. Today, I still needed to heal. I needed to rebuild myself. I needed to learn to live with this new version of myself. This stronger, but also lonelier Carol. Nancy continued to visit me. She suggested I move in with her. There's always a room waiting for you, she'd say. You don't have to be alone in that apartment full of memories. I seriously considered it. My apartment did hold many memories, good and bad, but it was also my space, my sanctuary, the place where I had started my new life. I wasn't ready to leave it yet. 2 months had passed since we signed the agreement. 2 months in which I slowly recovered pieces of myself I had lost. I returned to my old routines. I woke up late, with no alarm jarring me awake at 5 in the morning. I had a leisurely breakfast on my balcony, watching people pass by. I read books I had bought years ago and never had time to open. I started taking morning walks in the park near my house. Simple things that had once seemed impossible. Nancy convinced me to go to a dance class. "There's a group of women our age," she said. "They meet on Thursday afternoons. It's fun and good for you." At first, I resisted. "I'm not into that sort of thing," I told her. But she insisted so much that I finally agreed. The first class was awkward. I felt clumsy, old, out of place. But the other women were kind. They welcomed me without questions, without judgment, just smiles and dance steps we were all learning together. In those classes, I met Sarah, a 62-year-old woman, a widow like me, with a similar story. Her daughter and son-in-law had been manipulating her for years. They controlled her money. They told her how to dress, where to go, who to talk to. Until one day, Sarah had enough and left. She cut off contact with them and started over from scratch. We talked a lot after class. We'd have coffee at a nearby cafe and share our stories, our pains, our small victories. Sarah became a friend, someone who understood without needing long explanations. One afternoon, over coffee, Sarah told me something that stuck with me. "You know what the hardest part of all this is, Carol? It's not losing your family. It's not the loneliness. It's forgiving yourself for allowing so much, for being so blind." Her words hit me because they were true. I was still carrying guilt. Guilt for not realizing sooner, for having justified every mistreatment, for having been so naive. Sarah took my hand. We were victims of people who were supposed to love us. It's not our fault for trusting. It's their fault for betraying that trust. Those words freed me from a heavy weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. I started to work on forgiving myself, on understanding that being good didn't make me stupid, that trusting my son didn't make me guilty of his crimes. Little by little, the weight on my chest grew lighter. The sleepless nights became less frequent. The obsessive thoughts about what I could have done differently began to fade. One Saturday morning, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't have saved, but I recognized it. It was Jessica. My first instinct was to hang up, but something made me answer. "Carol," she said, her voice soft, almost timid, completely different from the demanding tone she always used. "I need to talk to you. It's important." "What do you want?" I asked in a neutral voice. There was a silence. "I want to apologize." I wasn't expecting those words. I was speechless. Jessica continued. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know what we did was unforgivable, but I need you to know that I'm sorry, that I've thought a lot about everything, and that I was wrong, so very wrong." Her voice broke a little. "Stephen and I are in therapy, trying to fix our marriage, trying to be better people. And part of that is acknowledging the harm we caused, especially to you." I listened without interrupting. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to tell her it was too late for apologies, that nice words didn't erase a year of exploitation and betrayal. But another, calmer part just wanted to listen, wanted to know if there was something genuine there or if it was another manipulation. "The baby asks about you," Jessica went on. "Well, he doesn't ask yet because he's too little. But when he sees pictures of you on the phone, he smiles. I think he remembers you and misses you." That hurt more than anything else she could have said. My grandson, the baby I had held in my arms, whom I had rocked when he cried, who had looked at me with those big, trusting eyes. "That's not fair," I finally said. "It's not fair for you to use the baby for this." "I'm not using him," Jessica replied quickly. "I'm just telling you the truth. Look, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect us to be a family again. I just needed to tell you that I'm sorry, that I'm ashamed, and that if you ever want to meet your grandson, the door is open. No strings attached, no expectations. I hung up without responding. I sat there with the phone in my hand for half an hour. Nancy, who had come to visit, noticed something was off. "What happened?" she asked. I told her about the call. She frowned. "I don't trust that woman. It could be another trap." "I don't trust her either," I admitted. But she sounded sincere. "Oh, she's a very good actress," Nancy said. Or did she really realize the magnitude of what they did? "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I need time to think." The next few days were confusing. Jessica's call had stirred up things I thought were settled. Thoughts about my grandson, about whether he had the right to know his grandmother, about whether I had the right to be in his life. I talked to Sarah about it. She gave me simple but profound advice. Ask yourself what you really want, not what you should want, not what others expect. What does Carol want for Carol? I took a whole week to reflect. I walked in the park, thinking. I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, thinking. I talked to myself out loud when I was alone, and I finally came to a conclusion. I wanted to know my grandson. I wanted to be a part of his life. But not at any cost. I would not sacrifice myself again. I would not be the free maid again. I would not allow abuse again. If I was going to have a relationship with that child, it would be on my terms, with clear boundaries, with mutual respect. I called Jessica on a Tuesday afternoon. She answered on the first ring, as if she had been waiting for my call. "Carol," she said, her voice nervous. "Hello, I want to see my grandson," I said directly. "But I need you to understand a few things first." "Of course," she said, "whatever you need. I will come once a week, on Sunday afternoons, for 2 hours. I will arrive, I will be with the baby, and I will leave. I will not clean, I will not cook. I will do nothing other than be his grandmother. If you agree to that, we can try." There was a pause, then Jessica replied, "We agree. We completely agree. Thank you, Carol. Thank you for giving us this chance." "I'm not doing this for you," I clarified. "I'm doing it for him, because that child is not to blame for anything, and he deserves to know his grandmother. But if I see any sign of manipulation, any attempt to take advantage, I will leave and I will not come back. Do you understand?" "I understand," she said in a small voice. "I promise." I hung up, feeling strange. Not exactly happy, but not sad either. It was something in between, something like cautious peace. I told Nancy about my decision. She wasn't entirely convinced. "Be careful," she warned. "Don't let them hurt you again." "I won't," I promised her. "I'm different this time. This time, I'm going in with my eyes wide open." Sunday arrived, and I prepared myself carefully. I dressed in comfortable but nice clothes. I did my hair. I put on a little makeup. Not for them, for me. Because I wanted to feel good. Because I wanted my grandson to have a grandmother who was dignified, strong, beautiful. I took the train I had taken so many times before. But this time was different. I wasn't going to fulfill an obligation. I was going because I had decided to go. Because I wanted to be there. I arrived at the building at 3 o'clock sharp. I rode the elevator up, my heart beating fast. I rang the doorbell. Stephen opened the door. He looked surprised to see me, even though he knew I was coming. "Mom," he said, his voice choked. "Come in." I entered without hugging him, without smiling. Politely, but with distance. The house was clean, tidy, very different from how I remembered it. Jessica was in the living room with the baby in her arms. She stood up when she saw me. "Hello, Carol," she said nervously. "Thank you for coming." I nodded. The baby looked at me with curiosity. He had grown so much in 2 months. He was no longer the tiny newborn I had known. Now he had a little person's face, expressions. I approached slowly. "Hello, my love," I said softly. "Do you remember me?" The baby watched me for a moment. Then he smiled. A big grin that lit up his whole face, and in that moment, I knew I had made the right decision. This child needed me, and I needed him. Jessica carefully handed the baby to me. I took him in my arms and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Warmth. Pure, uncomplicated love. The baby touched my face with his little hands and laughed. That sound was like medicine for my wounded soul. I sat on the couch with him. Stephen and Jessica remained standing, watching me, unsure of what to do. "You can sit down," I said without looking up from the baby. "It's your house." They sat on the other sofa, keeping their distance. The silence was awkward, but I didn't break it. I was focused on my grandson, on his curious eyes, on how he gripped my finger with his tiny hand, on his smell of clean baby and powder. "We got some new toys," Jessica said, pointing to a nearby box. "If you want to play with him." I pulled out a soft, stuffed animal. The baby grabbed it and immediately put it in his mouth. We all laughed a little. It was a strangely normal moment in the midst of so much tension. After a few minutes, Stephen spoke. "How have you been, Mom?" His voice sounded genuinely concerned. "Fine," I answered, without giving details. "I've been busy, with friends, with activities. My life is moving on." He nodded, biting his lip. "I'm glad. You look good. Different, more rested." "I am rested," I said, finally looking at him. "Because now I sleep in my own bed. I eat breakfast when I want. I live for myself. I'm no longer killing myself for people who don't appreciate it." The words came out harder than I intended, but they were true. Stephen looked down in shame. Jessica wrung her hands. "We are so sorry, Carol," she said, her voice trembling. "I know I've said it before, but I need you to know it's true. I've thought so much about everything we did to you, about how we treated you, and I'm deeply ashamed." Stephen and I grew up thinking money was the most important thing, that securing the future justified anything. But we were wrong. I looked at her, evaluating if her words were sincere. Her face showed real guilt. Red-rimmed eyes as if she had cried a lot, trembling hands, a broken voice. Either she was a very good actress, or she was truly sorry. "Money is important," I said finally. "We all need money to live. But when you put money above people, you lose your humanity. And that's what you did. You saw me as a resource, not as a person, not as family." "You're right," Jessica admitted. "And I have no excuse. I come from a family where money was always the topic of conversation. Investments, securing assets. My mother taught me to be practical, that feelings were secondary. But now I understand that way of thinking is toxic. It's destructive." Stephen joined the conversation. "I'm to blame too, Mom. Maybe more than Jessica. Because you raised me better than that. You taught me values, honesty, respect, gratitude. And I forgot them. I traded them for comfort, for easy money, for not having to work so hard. I thought we could take what was yours without it affecting you. As if your money was ours by right. As if being your son gave me permission to steal from you." His voice broke. "Forgive me, Mom. Please." I looked into his eyes and saw my little boy there. The boy who made drawings for me in school, who told me I love you before bed, who cried in my arms when he had nightmares. But I also saw the man who had betrayed me. And those two images couldn't easily coexist in my mind. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Stephen," I said honestly. "Not now. Maybe never. What you did was too much. You broke something between us that I don't know if it can be repaired. But I'm here for your son, because he deserves to have a grandmother, and I deserve to know my grandson. That doesn't mean we go back to how things were. It doesn't mean I forget. It means I'm choosing to move forward for his sake." Stephen nodded, tears falling down his cheeks. "I understand, and I'll accept whatever you can give me, even if it's just this. Seeing you once a week, it's more than I deserve." Jessica was also crying silently. The baby, oblivious to all the tension, played happily with the stuffed animal in my arms. I sang him a song, one I used to sing to Stephen when he was a baby. My voice came out shaky, but the child seemed to calm down. He closed his little eyes and yawned. "I think he's sleepy," I said. Jessica stood up. "I can put him down if you want. Or you can. It's his nap time." I thought for a moment. "I'd rather you do it," I replied. "I only came to visit him. Not to take your place as his mother." She nodded and gently took the baby. She disappeared towards the bedroom. Stephen and I were left alone in the living room. The silence was heavy. "Are you really going to therapy?" I asked. He nodded. "Twice a week. Individual and couples. The therapist is helping us understand why we made the decisions we did, why we thought it was okay to hurt you. It's painful to face those truths, but it's necessary." "Good," I said. "Because if you're going to be parents to that child, you need to be better people. You need to teach him real values, not the greed that led you to this." "I know," Stephen said. "And we're trying. We've made changes. We sold the expensive car we had. We moved to a smaller, more affordable apartment. I asked for a raise at work instead of looking for shortcuts. We're living within our means, no unnecessary luxuries. Saving for the baby's future." Honestly, I was surprised to hear that. "That sounds like a good start," I admitted. "But actions have to be consistent. You can't be a good person only when it's convenient." Myra returned to the living room. "The baby's asleep," she announced. She sat down next to Stephen. They both looked at me, waiting for something. I didn't know what. "I want to tell you something else, Carol," Myra said. "Something that might help you understand. I'm not justifying what we did, but I want you to know the context. My family lost everything when I was 15. My dad invested in a business that went bankrupt. We lost our house. We had to move in with relatives. We lived in poverty for years. I saw my mom cry because she couldn't buy us food. I saw my dad sink into depression. That experience scarred me. It made me obsessed with financial security, with never going through that again. So when Stephen told me about your properties, your money, I saw a solution. I saw a way to ensure my son would never go hungry, that he would never experience what I lived through. But in the process, I became the thing I hated most. Someone who hurts others for money." Her words made me understand something. Pain creates more pain if we don't process it. Mayra was carrying a trauma that never healed, and she projected it into terrible decisions. That didn't excuse her, but it made her a little more human, a little more understandable. "I'm sorry for what you went through," I said sincerely. "No one should have to go through that. But robbing me was not the solution. Working, striving, asking for help honestly, those were the solutions, not fraud." "I know that now," she said. "My therapist is helping me process those fears. To understand that security doesn't come from stolen money. It comes from building an honest life, from having peace of mind." We spent the next hour talking, not like a happy family, but like broken people trying to find some peace. Stephen told me about his job, about how he almost lost it when the court summons arrived, about how he had to explain the situation to his boss, about the humiliation he felt. Myra told me about motherhood, about how hard it was, about how she now valued everything I had done that year, about how she felt inadequate as a mother. I listened without judging too much, without comforting either, just listening. When the 2 hours were up, I got up to leave. "I'll be back next Sunday," I said. "Same time." They were grateful. "I'll walk you to the door," Stephen said. We walked to the exit together. At the door, he stopped. "Mom," he said softly, "I know I have no right to ask this, but someday when you're ready, I'd like to try to rebuild our relationship. Not like it was before, something new, something honest." "I'll think about it," I replied, "but it's going to take time, a lot of time." "I understand," he said. "I'll wait as long as it takes." I left that apartment with mixed feelings. I hadn't forgiven, I hadn't forgotten, but I had taken a step towards something. Towards what exactly, I didn't know. Maybe towards peace, maybe towards a new kind of family, or maybe just towards the ability to coexist for the baby's sake. Time would tell. I took the train back, thinking about everything, about how far I had come from that terrible day. I missed the train, about the woman I was then and the woman I was now, about all I had lost and all I had gained. Sundays became my favorite day, not because of Stephen or Jessica, but because of those 2 hours with my grandson. Watching him grow week by week was a gift I had been on the verge of losing forever. At 4 months, he recognized my voice and would reach his little arms out when I arrived. At 6 months, he said something that sounded like Graham, that we all pretended was my name. At 8 months, he would crawl towards me as soon as I walked through the door. Each of his small achievements filled a void in my chest I didn't know I had. Stephen and Jessica respected my boundaries. They never asked me to clean. They never asked me to cook. They never asked me for money or favors. The first few weeks, it was obvious they were holding back. That they wanted to ask me for things but bit their tongues. Over time, it became more natural. They learned to function without depending on me. They learned to be responsible adults. And I learned to be there without sacrificing myself, without losing myself in the process. My life outside of those Sundays blossomed too. The dance classes became something I looked forward to. Sarah and I became inseparable. We went out to dinner. We went to the movies. We took a long weekend trip to the coast together. We laughed like I hadn't laughed in years. I felt young again. Not in my body, because my 64 years were felt in every joint, but in my spirit, in the ability to enjoy life without guilt. Nancy also noticed the change in me. "You're glowing," she'd say. "This is what happens when you live for yourself and not for others." She was right. For decades I had lived for my husband, then for Stephen, then for Jessica, always putting myself last, always believing my happiness would come later, after raising my son, after helping him get established, after securing his future, but later never came. There was always something else that required my sacrifice, until everything exploded and forced me to choose myself. One Sunday, almost 6 months after my first visit back, I arrived at the apartment and noticed something different. There were more toys, new furniture, a warmer decor. Stephen saw me looking around. "We made some changes," he explained. "We want the baby to grow up in a nice environment, but all with our own money. Nothing we can't afford." I nodded in approval. The house felt like a home now. It no longer had the feeling of just being a place where people slept. Jessica was in the kitchen making coffee. She offered me a cup. "Thank you," I said, accepting it. The two of us sat at the table while Stephen played with the baby in the living room. "Carol," Jessica began nervously, "there's something I want to tell you." My body tensed automatically. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant again. 3 months. We weren't expecting it, but we're happy. And I wanted you to know before anyone else." I sat in silence, processing the information. Another baby. Another grandchild. Part of me felt joy. Another part felt fear. Fear that they would need me too much again. That they would try to use me again. Jessica read my expression. "We're not going to ask you for anything," she said quickly. "We've learned our lesson. We're going to hire help if we need it. My mom, Tatiana, has also offered to come for a few weeks after the birth. But if you want to meet the baby when she's born, you'll be welcome. No pressure. No expectations." I smiled a little. "I'd like to meet her," I said. "When you're ready." "When you're both ready." She smiled, relieved. "Thank you. That means a lot to us." We finished our coffee, talking about lighter things. The pregnancy. How the older baby would react when his little sister arrived. Possible names. It was a normal conversation. A normal family conversation. And I realized that maybe, just maybe, we were building something new on the ruins of what had been. The weeks passed, and Jessica's belly grew. I kept going on Sundays. The baby was now walking unsteadily. He was saying words. Grandma was one of them. Every time he said it, my heart melted. Stephen and I were talking more too. No longer just pleasantries. Real conversations about politics, books, movies. We avoided the past. We weren't ready to dissect it. But the present was enough for now. One day, Stephen asked me for something unusual. "Mom, can we talk alone for a moment?" Jessica took the baby and went to the bedroom. We sat on the couch. Stephen looked nervous. "What is it?" I asked. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. "This is for you." I opened it. Inside was a check. For $5,000. I looked at it, confused. "What is this?" "It's part of the money I owe you," he said. "Not just what I took from your accounts, but for the work you did during that year." I calculated the hours. The services. What we would have paid someone else. It comes out to more than $20,000 in total. This is the first payment. I'm going to give you $1,000 every month until it's paid off. I was speechless. I didn't expect this. I don't need it, Stephen, I finally said. I've already legally recovered what was mine. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, he insisted. I need to do it. Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because I need to show you that I've changed. That my words have actions behind them. Please, accept it. I thought for a moment. Then I folded the check and put it in my purse. All right, I accept it. But not because I need it, but because you need to give it to me. He nodded gratefully, tears in his eyes. The second baby was born in the spring. A beautiful girl with Jessica's dark hair. They called me from the hospital. If you want to come meet her, they said. I went with Nancy. We arrived with flowers and a pink stuffed animal. Jessica looked tired, but happy. Stephen was holding the baby with the proud clumsiness of a new father. Do you want to hold her? He asked me. I nodded. He passed me the little bundle wrapped in a soft blanket. The baby opened her eyes and looked at me. And in that moment, I felt a sense of completion, as if a circle had closed. This is your grandmother, Stephen whispered to the baby. The best grandmother in the world, even though we don't deserve her. I looked at him, surprised by his words. He gave me a sad smile. It's the truth, Mom. We don't deserve your presence, your forgiveness, your time, but we are infinitely grateful that you give it to us anyway. I didn't reply. I just focused on the baby, on her perfect little face, on her tiny hands that clung to my finger. The following months were an adjustment. 2 babies meant more chaos, more exhaustion for Stephen and Jessica. I offered to go 2 Sundays a month instead of 1. Only if you want, I clarified. No obligation. They accepted gratefully, watching them manage on their own, how they took turns getting up at night, how they worked as a team, made me feel something akin to pride. Maybe there was hope for them after all. One Sunday, I arrived to find Stephen doing laundry while the older baby played at his feet. Jessica was in the kitchen preparing food with the baby girl in a carrier. The scene reminded me of something, of me, when Stephen was little and I did everything alone. But it was also different. They were doing it together. They supported each other. They took turns. They had learned what I could never teach Stephen as a child because I spoiled him too much. Life had taught him what my blind love could not. That afternoon, as we drank tea after putting the children down, Jessica said something unexpected. Thank you for not giving up on us, Carol. It would have been easier to cut us off completely, to forget about Stephen, about the grandchildren, to start a new life without this burden. But you chose to stay. You chose to give us another chance. I don't know if we'll ever be able to make it up to you. I looked her in the eyes. It wasn't easy, I admitted. There were days I wanted to forget everything, days I hated Stephen, days I hated you both. But the children are not to blame. And deep down, no matter how much it hurts, Stephen is still my son. I can't turn off that love even if I wanted to. I can only decide how to express it. And I chose to express it with boundaries, with self-respect, with a love that doesn't destroy me. Stephen, who had been listening silently, spoke up. You taught us something important, Mom. You taught us that real love has dignity, that forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or allowing abuse. That family is built with actions, not with words. I smiled slightly. It took me a long time to learn that, I said. I wish I had known it sooner, but better late than never. We toasted with our teacups. To second chances, Jessica said. To an imperfect but real family, Stephen added. To me, I said finally. For choosing myself when no one else would. I left that house that night feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Complete peace. Not everything was perfect. It probably never would be. The wounds that Stephen and Jessica had caused left scars that would always be there. But I had learned to live with them. To not let them define my life. I had rebuilt my world on my own terms. And that world included my grandchildren. A little bit of Stephen and Jessica, a lot of Nancy and Sarah, and above all, a lot of me. Of the Carol I almost lost but managed to find again. The Carol who missed the train on that terrible day and ended up finding her way back to herself.